So the doctor said I've only got just a few days to live. As you know, I've been really trying to watch my health over the last several years, actually. I don't know, I feel like I've been trying to watch my health more and more throughout my lifetime. Obviously in my 20s, I didn't really pay attention to much at all. I ate garbage just like everybody else, went to Taco Bell every 2 days, you know, I smoked a lot. And over time, I have slowly improved my health. I think probably when I was 30 years old, I pretty much stopped drinking anything other than water. We got a reverse osmosis system, and I pretty much started drinking water from that point on. The only thing I was drinking other than water was coffee, and of course they always go back and forth on coffee, telling you that you can have it, you can't have it. And I probably drink too much, still yet today. But over time, I've constantly tried to improve my health. Now, I did have somewhat of a slip up, in, I don't know, probably around my 43, 44 years old, somewhere around there. We were working non-stop. I've told you this many times, just constantly working. And so we wouldn't get out of work until 8 o'clock at night. Have to go back at work at 6, sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning, every day. And it was a 7-day-a-week job. Even though Sundays I was usually home, I was still working until about 1 p.m. on the computer, catching up on all my administrative duties. We'd get out of work and we'd either go off to a Chinese restaurant or Emo's Pizza. Carolyn and I liked those both quite a bit. Now, I always thought the Chinese restaurant was probably pretty healthy. You're eating rice, chicken. You know, I just kind of felt like that was healthy. Now I know it wasn't healthy. And then the pizza, I knew it was unhealthy, but I was gaining weight. It was so obvious I was gaining weight. And it was funny because I felt like I worked so hard every day, just running back and forth on the plant floor, pallet jacks in my hand, and I was just constantly on the move. But my diet, there's Skitty. Everybody likes Skitty. She is the greatest cat. Now, during this time, I quit smoking. Carolyn and I started using the vape probably for a year. Well, I should back up. I also got separated from my previous wife during all this stress at work. So I was there was just more than I could deal with. And I'm trying to quit smoking. I'm on the vape. Then I met Carolyn later, and she got on the vape too. She actually quit faster than I did, I guess, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it. For the most part, I've always tried to learn and improve my health. Now, my grandpa was a chiropractor and a naturalist. So he has a cure for cancer. And he has cured several people. He's passed on by now, but he cured several people. He cured himself of prostate cancer. He cured my grandma of spinal cancer. I'm not even sure if grandma was ever cured. He just put it in remission for the rest of her life. And she lived to like 84 years old. So a good long life. Pretty healthy life too. He lived into his 80s. And I don't know the whole story because it was patient confidentiality. But he had a patient that came and said, "Doc, they only give me just a few weeks to live, a few months to live." And he says, "Well, what would it hurt to let me take a look at you?" And Grandpa was able to fix it. So I do what he did about every 6 months to a year. I take this supplement that he recommends. I can't tell you what it is. Don't email me. YouTube has absolutely said there's medical misinformation. You can't talk about it. Then if you email me, and then it goes to my Gmail account, and then they block it or send it off to spam. And then I stop for 6 months. And the reason you have to stop is because it's pretty hard on the liver. So I take milk thistle for the liver and the kidneys. You look it up, people say, "Oh, it doesn't help with the kidneys." It does help with the kidneys. Now, my last wife looked like she had a tumor on her face. It was growing pretty big. And we didn't have health insurance, so trying to get her to the doctor, it would have been a fortune if they just said it was a tumor or cancer or something. So she took that supplement. And within a few weeks, that tumor went down. And I've always said I would rather die doing what Grandpa said than taking the chemo and the radiation, because I watched a family member it was terrible. They $8,000 of treatment 3 times a week for several weeks, and she still died. All that thing is just a money maker. Oh, every now and then you hear a success story. Oh, put me in remission. That's great. I'm glad it helped you, but it kills a lot more. Everyone I've known that had cancer, I feel like was killed by the doctor, not the cancer. Carbohydrates. We talk about carbohydrates a lot. The carbohydrates are just poison. I've been doing a lot of research, and I don't even know if it's really research. I mean, it's YouTube videos and reading. I mean, if you try to look at normal sources, if you Google carbohydrates, you Google meat diets, there's all kinds of mixed stuff. So you got to weed it all out. But I've been really watching these doctors who are talking about carnivorous diets. And then if you Google the specifics, so if the doctor tells you carbohydrates has sugar in it, for example, let's just use that as a silly example. If you Google, does carbohydrates have sugar in it? The answer is a resounding yes. It is sugar. Your body converts it into sugar, and it's sugar. Is there any good sugars? Nope. All sugars are bad. How about the sugar in fruit? Nope. Bad. So if you start Googling specifics, Google will tell you the answers. But if you ask, should I eat fruit? Or is fruit bad for you? Oh no, fruit's great for you. The YouTube doctors seem to be getting into the details that Google doesn't tell you, or scientists don't tell you. Just watched a video today. It was a 30-minute video sent to me by 1954 Shadow, and it said that plants are trying to kill us. And it talked about all kinds of different plants and vegetables that we eat. Brussels sprouts, nobody likes. You ever wonder why nobody likes Brussels sprouts? I know somebody's gonna say, oh, I love Brussels sprouts. It was kind of a joke, and he said, because they're poison. Your tongue is telling you, spit it out. And come to find out, they did some tests on the Brussels sprouts, and it had 136 chemicals that are poisonous. And carbohydrates cause inflammation. I've told you about my shoulder. I was getting to a point I couldn't even swing the maul to split firewood anymore. But I got off the carbohydrates, and within a few months, I was fine with my shoulder. It actually healed. I didn't even realize it healed until I went back out to split some firewood, and boy, this is gonna hurt. And I thought, wait a minute, I haven't felt any pain in my shoulder. The other day, my knee started hurting climbing up the stairs here. So I just watched what I was doing when I step up on the step, and within a few days, I didn't need knee surgery or any of that kind of stuff. I just healed. And I contribute this all to the meat diet. So I've talked about the meat diet quite a bit on my YouTube channel. And of course, I get a lot of people say, hey, you turned me on to the meat diet, or so-and-so turned me on to the meat diet. And turns out that they're getting better and healthier and feeling good. I've told you about the psychiatrist on YouTube. His daughter had 2 joint replacements before she was 16 years old. I think she also had a hip replacement. She was very sick all the time, autoimmune diseases. Maybe that's irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, there's several, but the most common one I've ever heard is irritable bowel syndrome. So imagine that before 16, you had irritable bowel syndrome. At 16, she heard about a meat diet, so she went on a meat diet, and she has not had an issue since. She is completely healed. She's had a child. I live on a mountainside. It's a huge hill. And just going down to the truck camper to check on the electricity and coming back up, I was always out of breath. And that's not even 200 feet maybe. But coming up that hill was just exhausting. But now it's actually kind of fun to walk up the hill. Your brain's telling you, oh, this is going to be dreadful, and you're just like cruising up it. It's not even an issue. I'm not out of breath when I get up here. And I've not done anything different other than get off carbohydrates and start eating meat. And eggs. I eat a lot of eggs. As a matter of fact, here recently we've been eating a ton of eggs because the chickens are producing about 12, sometimes 14 a day. Yesterday they only produced 8. Did you figure 8 eggs a day between me and Carolyn? And her son doesn't like eggs, so we're trying to fix him foods that he'll eat. So we've been eating more eggs, so that leaves him more food of the other stuff that he likes to eat. And Carolyn mixes it up a little bit every now and then, scrambled eggs or over easy eggs, or she cooked it too long and the over easy eggs became hard in the center eggs. Boiled eggs. I'm not a big fan of boiled eggs. There's a smell that boiled eggs gives off for some reason. I don't understand it. And the texture is just weird to me. I mean, I can eat them, and I do eat them. But if I had a choice between something else and boiled eggs, it would always be something else. Then, but she'll make devil's eggs. That seems to neutralize the problem I have with them. It's not a wide variety of flavors, but it is a little bit different from meal to meal. I hear people all the time, oh, I couldn't eat that many eggs. I'm lucky if I could eat a dozen eggs a month. Well, it's because you're addicted to carbohydrates, sugars. So we can our meat. Anytime we find a sale, we can it. And it was amazing to me how many people have not heard of canning meat. If you buy a canner from Walmart, you open up the instructions, you read the instructions, it tells you how to can chicken and beef and ground beef and pork, hot pack, cold pack. But a lot of people are only used to canning vegetables. But you can can meat, and it's not that hard. In my mind, it's actually easier than vegetables. I'm not going to get into that because every time I do, somebody says, oh no, you're wrong. But I'm not wrong because I do it, and I feel like it's easier. So it's just a feeling I have. How can I be wrong about my own feelings? I get that a lot. You know, I feel like I'm happy. Oh no, you're wrong. It's a miserable day. So the other day I made a video about canning food. Specifically, I was talking about canning ground beef. And I got a ton of people commenting about ground beef. Now, of course, I got a lot of nice questions and responses. And then I got those, I couldn't do with that. That's ridiculous. I can't eat ground beef unless it's mixed in with, you know, a ton of sugar, carbohydrates, spaghettis, taco shells, tomatoes, nightshades, you know, all that poison. Somebody asked nicely, you know, you get those that are nice, what do you cook with it? And the answer is usually not much. Usually we just come out here, heat it up on the stove, and eat it. It's got a ton of flavor in it because it's been canned. But occasionally Carolyn will put cheese in it, maybe. One of the things that we do, and this probably isn't the healthiest thing in the world, but it's better than like bouillon cubes. This is better than bouillon. You can order this off Walmart.com. It's mostly natural ingredients, mostly. What it doesn't have is MSG, monosodium glutamate. I hate that stuff. That stuff's addictive too, if it's manufactured. Now, I know in Asia, they actually take it out of the ocean. I guess that's better for you. So, well, we'll flavor it up, but for the most part, that's all we eat. And the chicken, same thing. I eat this 2 or 3 times a day by myself. I just come out here, heat it up, and then I'll put a little bit of that chicken flavor, better than bouillon. So you don't need a lot of flavors. Well, I couldn't do that. Okay, here's the thing. If you're dying or very sick, you shouldn't be worried about all the flavors that you need. You don't need flavors. Once you get off carbohydrates, flavors are not a thing that you need anymore. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's food, it's a substance, it's just something you have to do to sustain life. It's neither pleasurable or displeasurable. It's like breathing. Years ago, I was working in a manufacturing company as a quality inspector, and I was testing spray bottles, and back then they used refrigerant, the thing that ejected the material out of the can. And that refrigerant got into my lungs. Now, refrigerant's heavier in air, so it just sunk to the bottom of my lungs. And it was miserable. I was miserable for weeks. And it was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And so I finally went to the doctor, and I was still smoking at the time. He says, you only got a few days to live. If you continue smoking, you're not going to make it. It was just that simple. I just stopped smoking. I mean, I just stopped. And so then we started the treatments, and we got that refrigerant out of my lungs. And I stayed smoke-free for about a year. I mean, of course, I was still in my 20s, so I liked to smoke, and I was feeling better. But the thing is it was just that easy. A major addiction that I had had since I was 9 years old. I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to die. So I stopped. So if you're telling me I'm sick, I can't do anything, I'm overweight, then tell me, oh, I couldn't eat that every day. I gotta have, you know, whatever, a variety of foods. Then I don't know what to tell you. I was scared into quit smoking. If you're sick and you're dying, you should be scared into doing something different with your diet. Stop with the junk food. Stop with it. And when I say junk food, I don't mean candy and chocolate and ice cream. I mean spaghetti pasta, potatoes, green beans. Get them out of your diet. They're killing you. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video where I was talking about Carolyn's son. So I hope I can inspire you to get scared, to get healthy, so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.